My name is Walter Morrison. I'm 76 years old now, and I'm about to tell you how I destroyed my own family to save myself. The gravy boat slipped from my hands when I heard my son-in-law's voice through the kitchen wall. Not because of what he said, but because of how casually he planned to destroy me.
The cranberry sauce gleamed like rubies under the dining room chandelier, each crystal catching the warm November light that filtered through my Richmond, Virginia home. I'd spent 43 years perfecting this Thanksgiving spread, the same recipes Martha used to make before cancer stole her from me 8 winters ago. My hands, weathered from decades of construction work, moved with practiced precision as I arranged the china, the set Martha and I bought on our 10th anniversary, back when we could barely afford groceries. "Walter, you need any help in there?" My daughter Grace called from the living room, her voice carrying that sugary tone she'd recently adopted. 6 months ago, she barely called. Now she and her husband Marcus visited every weekend, bringing wine I didn't ask for and concern I didn't need. "I'm managing just fine, sweetheart," I called back, though my knees protested as I bent to check the turkey. 71 years old, but I could still cook a meal that would make Martha proud. The doorbell rang at precisely 4 o'clock. Grace rushed to answer it, and I heard Marcus's parents, Eugene and Dorothy, exclaiming about the beautiful neighborhood, the charming colonial architecture, the value of property in this part of Richmond. Strange, they'd never shown interest in my home before. I was carrying the turkey to the dining room when I heard it. Marcus's voice, coming from the back porch where he'd stepped out for what he claimed was a work call. The window was cracked just enough for his words to drift through like poison smoke. "Yeah, Dad, it's perfect. 4 bedrooms, finished basement, that workshop you've always wanted. The old man's getting confused lately. Grace has been documenting everything. Doctor visits, forgot to pay the water bill once, left the stove on, building a case." My hands went numb. The turkey platter trembled. 6 months tops. Grace found a place out near Mechanicsville. Basic facility, but it's only $2,800 a month. Once we're not paying rent on our apartment, we can swing it easy. Then this place is ours. The room tilted. 43 years in this house. 43 years of mortgage payments, repairs, memories soaked into every floorboard. The kitchen where Grace took her first steps. The backyard where we buried her goldfish with a full funeral ceremony when she was 7. The bedroom where Martha took her last breath, holding my hand. "Better get back inside," Marcus continued. "Can't have him suspecting anything. The beauty is, he trusts Grace completely. All we have to do is keep playing the concerned family card." If you're still watching, if this hasn't made your stomach turn yet, then subscribe, because what comes next will show you exactly why some betrayals can never be forgiven. I set the turkey down with steady hands, though my insides felt like shattered glass. Grace appeared in the doorway, that false smile painted across the face I'd kissed 10,000 times when she was small and scared of thunderstorms. "Dad, you look pale. Maybe you should sit down. We can serve dinner." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. When did she become this stranger? When had I become not her father, but an obstacle to remove? "I'm fine," I said, carving the turkey with the same knife I'd used every Thanksgiving since she was born. Just fine. But I wasn't fine. I was planning.
They wanted to see a weak old man, so I gave them exactly what they expected, while secretly orchestrating their destruction. December arrived with unusual warmth for Richmond, the kind that made people uneasy, like the weather itself knew something was wrong. I stood at my bedroom window, watching Grace's Honda pull into my driveway, the same car I'd co-signed for when her credit was shot after college. She visited 3 times that first week of December, each time with new pamphlets for senior communities and assisted living facilities. "Dad, I found this wonderful place near Ashland," she said, spreading glossy brochures across my kitchen table like tarot cards predicting my future. "Look, they have activities, a library, medical staff on site." I picked up a brochure, squinted at it, let my hand shake just slightly. "Seems expensive." "Don't worry about that," Marcus said, appearing behind Grace like a shadow. "We want what's best for you, Walter. Money isn't the issue." Money wasn't the issue because they planned to use my house to pay for it. I'd overheard Marcus on another call yesterday discussing home equity loans with someone named Brad. They were already spending money that wasn't theirs. I started my performance small. Left a pot on the stove until the smoke alarm chirped, just long enough for Grace to rush in and find me looking confused. Paid the electric bill twice, then called Grace in a panic about the missing payment. Each incident carefully orchestrated, documented by their eager eyes. "I'm worried about you, Dad," Grace said after the third incident, her hand on mine. Her engagement ring, the one I helped Marcus pick out, the one I loaned him money for, caught the light. Maybe it's time to consider options. Behind her, through the doorway, I saw Marcus measuring my living room with his phone app. He didn't know I saw him. They never knew I saw any of it. 2 weeks before Christmas, I drove to the library, told Grace I was going to the grocery store. The young librarian helped me access the computer, probably wondering why this old man needed to research property law and quick sale real estate options. I took notes in the small notebook I'd carried since my construction days, the one Martha gave me for our first anniversary. Are you still there? Still listening? Then hit that like button. Not for me, but for every parent who's ever discovered their child sees them as a burden to be managed. We need to know we're not alone. That evening, Grace cooked dinner at my house, badly. She'd never learned to cook properly, despite Martha's attempts to teach her. As we ate her dry chicken and mushy vegetables, she kept glancing at her phone, texting rapidly between bites. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Oh, yes, just planning something special for you." Special. That's what they called it. I excused myself to the bathroom and stood at the top of the stairs, listening. Grace's voice carried up talking to Marcus about scheduling viewings. Not for senior homes, but for furniture shopping. They were already planning how to redecorate my home. "The bedroom furniture has to go," I heard her say. "It's so outdated. And that old recliner Dad loves, straight to the dump." The recliner, where Martha nursed Grace through countless midnight feedings, where I held my wife's hand during her chemo treatments, where I sat alone after the funeral, trying to remember how to breathe. I returned to dinner, smiled at my daughter, and complimented her terrible cooking. Let her think I was the fool. Let them both think they'd won. Christmas was coming, and with it, I'd give them a gift they'd never forget. Oh, not the one they expected.
I signed their papers with a shaking hand, watched them celebrate in my driveway, all while knowing I'd already sold the house 3 days ago. The office of Richardson and Associates occupied a discreet corner of downtown Richmond, the kind of place you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. David Richardson had been handling property law for 30 years, and his eyes held the weight of every family betrayal he'd witnessed. "Mr. Morrison," he said, reviewing my documents, "you understand that as sole owner, you have complete authority over this property? No one, not even family, can stop you from selling." "That's what I'm counting on," I replied, sliding the deed across his mahogany desk. "How quickly can we move?" "With a cash buyer? 2 weeks, maybe less." I'd found the buyers through a discreet listing. The Hendersons, a young couple from North Carolina, both software engineers working remotely. They fell in love with the house's character, the original crown molding, the garden Martha had cultivated for decades. They offered $465,000 cash, no inspection needed. "We close January 15th, David confirmed. "Until then, not a word to anyone." Meanwhile, Grace and Marcus escalated their campaign. They brought Eugene and Dorothy to dinner, and I watched the older couple tour my home like they were at an open house. Dorothy ran her fingers along my walls, discussing paint colors. Eugene measured the garage for his woodworking equipment. "You'll love it here, Dad," Marcus said to Eugene, not bothering to lower his voice. "Once Walter's settled in his new place, this'll be perfect for you. The basement needs work, but I can fix that. Probably add $20,000 to the property value." They spoke about me like I was already gone, a ghost haunting my own home. New Year's Eve arrived with freezing rain. Grace insisted on celebrating at my house, arriving with champagne and Marcus's parents. As midnight approached, she pulled out a folder with official-looking documents. "Dad, we've been thinking. While you're transitioning to easier living, we could stay here, maintain the house, handle all the repairs and bills." The document was titled Temporary Residence Agreement. Marcus's lawyer friend had drafted it, probably on a discount. Legally meaningless, but they didn't know that. If this makes your blood boil, if you're screaming at your screen right now, then subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the people we trust most are the ones sharpening the knife. I pretended to read it carefully, asked about utilities, about maintenance schedules, let my hands shake as I signed. Grace hugged me with tears in her eyes, tears of joy for what she thought she'd gained, not for what she believed I was losing. "We'll take such good care of everything, Dad," she whispered. "You'll see." January 2nd, they arrived with a moving truck. Not to move me out, not yet, but to move themselves in. Boxes labeled Eugene's Tools and Dorothy's China appeared in my garage. Marcus carried in a flat-screen TV, explaining it was for everyone to enjoy. I helped them unload, playing the grateful father, the confused elder happy for the company. Inside, I counted days on the calendar hidden in my bedroom drawer. 13 days until closing. 13 days until the hammer fell. "Where will you go, Walter?" Dorothy asked that evening, already rearranging my kitchen cabinets. Grace mentioned a lovely place near Mechanicsville. "Still deciding," I said, watching her place her dishes, where Martha's had lived for 40 years. "Want to make the right choice." Marcus clapped me on the shoulder, patronizing and dismissive. "Take your time, Walter. We're here now. We'll handle everything." Everything. They had no idea what everything was about to mean. That night I sat in Martha's chair, the one Grace planned to throw away, and held our wedding photo. "I'm protecting what we built, honey," I whispered to her image. "They want to erase us, but I won't let them." Outside, Marcus and Eugene unloaded more boxes, their laughter echoing across the yard, where Grace once played, where Martha planted roses, where our life together bloomed and grew and mattered. 10 days remaining. The closing papers were signed while they hung pictures in bedrooms they'd never sleep in, planned renovations for a house that was no longer mine or theirs. January 15th dawned crisp and bright, the kind of winter morning that made Richmond look like a postcard. I left the house at 8 a.m., told Grace I had a doctor's appointment. She barely looked up from her laptop where she was browsing furniture websites, already spending money she didn't have. The title company office hummed with quiet efficiency. The Hendersons sat across from me, excited about their new home, unaware of the drama they were walking into. They were good people, reminded me of Martha and myself 40 years ago, young and eager to build something together. "We promised to take care of it, Mr. Morrison," Sarah Henderson said, signing her portion of the documents. "It's exactly what we've been dreaming of." "The garden especially," her husband Michael added. "Sarah's grandmother was a master gardener. She'll love continuing what your wife started." That felt right. Martha would have liked them. David Richardson sat beside me as I signed each document, my signature steady and sure. No trembling now, no performance. Just the clean execution of a plan months in the making. "The eviction notice goes out today," David confirmed quietly. "Certified mail. They'll have 30 days from receipt." I nodded, pocketed the cashier's check for $465,000, shook hands with the Hendersons. The house is yours now. May you have as many happy years there as I did. Meanwhile, back at what was no longer my house, Marcus was in the garage with his father, planning their workshop renovation. Grace had called in sick to work, spending the day arranging and rearranging furniture, posting photos on social media about helping Dad downsize and new family beginnings. Still watching? Good, because this is where karma stops knocking politely and kicks down the door. Subscribe now. You'll want to see how this ends. I drove to the extended stay hotel I'd booked near the airport. Simple, clean, anonymous. Everything I needed was already there. Clothes, documents, the photos that mattered. Everything else could burn for all I cared. The next morning, January 16th, I sat in the hotel restaurant eating eggs and toast when my phone exploded with calls. 17 from Grace, 12 from Marcus, 4 from Eugene. I let them all go to voicemail, finished my breakfast in peace. The first voicemail, Grace's voice, pitched with hysteria. "Dad, there's been some kind of mistake. We got a notice saying the house was sold. This can't be right. Call me immediately." The second, Marcus, angry. "Walter, what the hell is going on? This is some kind of error, right? We have an agreement." The third, Eugene, threatening. "You senile old bastard. You can't do this to us. We have rights." No, they didn't. By noon, Marcus was at the lawyer's office, the same discount friend who drafted their meaningless residence agreement. I know because the lawyer called David Richardson, who called me, laughing. "The kid's lawyer just realized the agreement isn't worth the paper it's printed on," David said. "He's trying to claim elder abuse, mental incompetence, fraud, throwing everything at the wall. Nothing will stick." That evening, I finally answered Grace's 43rd call. "Dad," she was crying, "how could you do this? Where are you? We need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about," I said calmly. "You wanted me in a $2,800 facility in Mechanicsville. You measured my rooms while I was out. You planned my disposal like I was already dead. That's not... We never..." "Thanksgiving, Grace. I heard Marcus on the phone, every word. I heard you planning furniture shopping while I cooked you dinner. I heard Eugene discussing property values in my garage." Silence. Then quietly, "Dad, we're family." "No, family doesn't scheme to warehouse their father. Family doesn't measure for furniture while planning to lock someone away. You have 30 days to vacate. I suggest you start packing." I hung up, turned off the phone, ordered room service, and watched the sun set over Richmond, the city where I'd built my life, raised my daughter, lost my wife, and finally learned that sometimes the people we love most are the ones capable of the deepest betrayal. 29 days remaining. They tried everything: lawyers, tears, threats, even showing up at places they thought I'd be, hunting for the father who disappeared like smoke. The Marriott near Richmond International became my temporary fortress. Room 412, paid month to month, overlooking the parking lot where travelers came and went with purpose I no longer needed. I'd lived 71 years in the same city, and now I was invisible in it. Marcus hired 3 different lawyers in the first week. I know because David Richardson kept me informed, barely containing his amusement at their increasingly desperate legal theories. Today they claimed undue influence, David reported over coffee at a diner near the airport. Yesterday it was breach of verbal contract. My favorite was the emotional distress claim, said you caused them severe psychological trauma by selling your own house. What did the judge say? Dismissed, dismissed, and dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can't even refile that one. Meanwhile, Eugene and Dorothy discovered their old apartment had been re-rented. The property management company was apologetic but firm. They'd given notice in November, planning their grand move to my house.
Now they scrambled for housing in a market that had jumped 15% since fall. They ended up in Chesterfield, David informed me, having heard through the legal grapevine, $2,400 a month for a 2-bedroom. Dorothy's working at Target now. Eugene's applying to be a greeter at Walmart. The mighty retirement they'd planned in my 4-bedroom colonial, reduced to retail wages and apartments smaller than what they'd left. If you're thinking I went too far, that family should forgive family no matter what, then you've never been betrayed by someone you'd die for. Hit subscribe and tell me in the comments if you think revenge is justice or cruelty. Grace left voicemails that evolved like the stages of grief. Denial. Dad, we can work this out. Anger. You're destroying our lives. Bargaining. What if we pay rent? Would that change things? Depression. I can't sleep, can't eat. Marcus and I are fighting constantly. She never reached acceptance. On January 28th, she tried a new tactic, posted on Facebook about her missing father, possibly suffering from dementia, last seen in the Richmond area. She uploaded recent photos, my license plate number, asked people to share widely. Within hours, my phone, the new one I bought, buzzed with calls from concerned friends. Tom Bradley, my neighbor for 20 years, called David Richardson instead of the number Grace posted. Walt's not missing, Tom told David, who related to me. Saw him yesterday at the Kroger, sharp as ever. That girl's trying to manipulate everyone, just like she manipulated him. The post backfired spectacularly. Comments poured in from people who'd watched Grace ignore me for years, only to suddenly become devoted when she started visiting constantly 6 months ago. My barber wrote, "Funny how you only cared when you needed something." The mailman added, "Man seemed fine to me when he told me he was downsizing. Good for him." Grace deleted the post within 12 hours, but screenshots had already spread. February 1st arrived with an ice storm. The 30-day notice expired at midnight. I sat in my hotel room watching the clock turn over, knowing that somewhere across the city, Grace and Marcus were packing boxes in a house they'd measured for furniture, planned renovations for, invited friends to visit them in. The sheriff will arrive at 9 a.m. if they're not out. The Hendersons are ready to move in immediately. At 11 p.m., Grace called one more time. I almost didn't answer, but something, maybe the father I used to be, made me pick up. "Dad," her voice was small, defeated. "We're leaving. The boxes are packed. But I need to know, was there ever a moment when you might have forgiven us? If we'd asked, if we'd been honest?" I thought about Martha, about the daughter who once drew crayon pictures of our family, stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. The moment you decided I was disposable, Grace, you stopped being my daughter. You became a stranger planning my removal. There's no forgiveness for that, only consequences. I lost my father. No, I corrected, you threw him away. There's a difference. The line went dead. I set the phone down, walked to the window, watched planes take off into the dark sky. Each one carrying people toward new destinations, new possibilities, new lives. Tomorrow the Hendersons would wake up in the house Martha and I built. They'd tend her garden, cook in her kitchen, fill those rooms with their own memories. And somewhere in Chesterfield, or wherever they'd landed, 4 people who'd schemed to steal my life would wake up to the reality that their greed had cost them everything.
6 months later, I saw her in the grocery store. My daughter looked through me like I was a stranger, but her eyes carried the weight of someone who'd lost everything by trying to take it all. Spring came early to Richmond that year, azaleas blooming in March, the air heavy with pollen and possibility. I'd moved from the hotel to a modest apartment in the museum district, 1 bedroom, 2nd floor, overlooking Monument Avenue. It cost me $1,800 a month, but with the house sale proceeds invested conservatively, I could afford it indefinitely. The Hendersons sent me photos of Martha's garden in full bloom. They'd maintained everything exactly as she'd designed it, even added a small plaque by the rose bushes. Martha's garden, loved 1979 to 2025. That kindness from strangers meant more than 40 years of supposed love from family. I learned about Grace and Marcus through the Richmond rumor network. Amazing how news travels in a city of 300,000. Their marriage imploded by April. The stress of the eviction, the financial pressure, the mutual blame. Marcus blamed Grace for not managing me better. Grace blamed Marcus for pushing too hard, too fast. They separated by May, divorced by August. Marcus moved back with his parents in their cramped Chesterfield apartment. 3 generations of failed schemers in 900 square feet. Dorothy still working at Target. Eugene still rejected from every job that required more than standing and greeting. Their grand plan for workshop retirement had become retail survival. If you're wondering whether I felt guilty, whether I questioned my choices, subscribe and keep watching. Because the hardest part wasn't the revenge, it was learning to live with the silence after. I ran into Dorothy at the Target where she worked, July afternoon, buying new towels for my apartment. She stood at register 3, scanning items with the mechanical movements of someone whose spirit had been broken by routine. Our eyes met, hers widened, then narrowed, then went carefully blank. She scanned my towels without a word, announced the total in a monotone voice. I paid cash, took my receipt, said nothing. What was there to say? She'd planned to renovate my kitchen while I rotted in a facility. Now she was wearing a name tag and orthopedic shoes, 63 years old, and starting over. August brought unexpected news through David Richardson. Grace had left Richmond entirely, moved to Charlotte for a fresh start. Got a job through a college friend, lived in a studio apartment, told people her parents were both dead. "She's erased you," David said over lunch. Easier than explaining what really happened. "The feeling's mutual," I replied, though something in my chest tightened, phantom pain from a relationship that no longer existed. I started volunteering at the Richmond Public Library, teaching basic computer skills to seniors. Ironic considering Grace thought I was too confused to manage my own life. The other volunteers, mostly retired teachers and professionals, became my new community. We met for coffee on Thursdays, played poker on Saturdays, shared stories of grandchildren we saw and didn't see. "Family is complicated," said Bernice, a retired nurse whose son visited once a year. "Sometimes the family we choose is kinder than the one we're born into." October arrived with unusual cold, leaves turning brilliant red and gold. I walked through Maymont Park, past families taking photos, children playing, couples holding hands. My phone, the one Grace used to call dozens of times daily, hadn't rung in months. One afternoon, I saw them, Grace and Marcus, together despite the divorce, looking at a house for rent in my old neighborhood. She was thinner, he was grayer, both carrying themselves like people who'd aged a decade in a year. They stood on the sidewalk staring at my old house, where the Hendersons had installed new shutters, painted the door Martha's favorite shade of blue. Grace was crying. Marcus had his arm around her, but his face was stone. They didn't see me watching from across the street, didn't know I witnessed their pilgrimage to what they'd lost. I heard Marcus say, "We should have waited, should have talked to him honestly." "He would have said no," Grace replied. "Then we should have accepted that," Marcus said, pulling away from her. "It was his house, his life. We had no right." They left separately. Grace in an older Honda, the Lexus long sold. Marcus on foot toward the bus stop, his car also sacrificed to their failed scheme. I stood there, as the sun set behind the house where I raised my daughter, loved my wife, built my life. The Hendersons' children played in the yard where Grace once played. Their laughter echoed like ghosts of happier times, when love meant something more than calculation, when family meant more than opportunity. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, Grace's handwriting on an envelope with no return address, containing words that came 2 years too late. November again. 2 years since that Thanksgiving when I overheard the phone call that changed everything. I developed a routine in my museum district apartment. Morning coffee overlooking Monument Avenue, afternoon walks in Bird Park, evenings reading in my small study. The money from the house sale sat mostly untouched, generating enough interest to supplement my pension. I needed very little. The letter came mixed with grocery store circulars and credit card offers. Her handwriting hadn't changed, still the careful cursive Martha had taught her, though shakier now, uncertain. Dad, I don't expect you to read this. Don't expect forgiveness or understanding. I just need you to know some things before it's too late. Marcus and I are done, really done this time. The divorce was finalized in August. He lives with his parents now. They hate me for ruining their retirement dreams. Funny how they blame me but not themselves. I guess it's easier that way. I work at a dental office in Charlotte now, filing insurance claims, answering phones. It's quiet work. I live alone in a studio apartment that could fit in your old living room. I think about that living room every day. The fireplace where we hung stockings, the corner where the Christmas tree stood, the couch where Mom read to me. If you're still with us, if you're still somewhere in Richmond, I want you to know you were right. Every word you said was right. We planned to dispose of you like furniture we didn't want anymore. We measured your rooms while you grocery shopped. We discussed your future like you were already gone. But Dad, I need you to know why. Not to excuse it, there's no excuse, but maybe to understand. After Mom died, you disappeared into yourself. You were there physically, but gone in every way that mattered. I'd call, you'd give one-word answers. I'd visit, you'd stare through me like I was interrupting your grief. For 8 years, I competed with a ghost and lost every time. When Marcus suggested the plan, something broke in me. All that anger at being shut out, at losing both parents when only one had died, it turned into something cruel. I told myself you didn't care about me anyway, so why should I care about you? I was wrong. So wrong it makes me sick every morning. I dream about that Thanksgiving dinner. In the dream, I hear Marcus on the phone and I stop him. I tell him we're leaving. I hug you and mean it. I tell you I love you and mean that too. But I wake up and it's just another day in a life I destroyed by trying to steal yours. Eugene had a heart attack last month. Survived, but barely. Dorothy works double shifts to pay the medical bills. Marcus sleeps on their couch. Sometimes I think we're all serving the sentences we wrote for ourselves. I don't expect a response. Don't deserve one. I just wanted you to know that every morning I wake up without a father, I remember that I threw him away. And that's a weight I'll carry forever. Your daughter, if I can still claim that word, Grace. P.S. I drove by the house last week. The new owners have children. The garden looks beautiful. Mom would be happy. Are you watching through tears? Are you thinking about someone you've lost or pushed away? Subscribe now. Share this story, because sometimes the only way forward is to acknowledge what we've broken. I read the letter 3 times. Each reading hurt differently. First with anger, then with sadness, finally with something harder to name. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, maybe just acknowledgement. I sat at my small desk, pulled out a sheet of paper, uncapped my pen, wrote one line. The garden was always Martha's. I'm glad it's loved again. No signature, no return address on the envelope. Mailed it from a post office across town. 2 weeks later, I was walking in Bird Park when I saw a familiar figure on a bench. Eugene, thinner now, moving slowly with a walker. He sat watching ducks on the pond, alone. Our eyes met. He started to stand. Whether to confront me or leave, I couldn't tell. I held up my hand, kept walking. But I heard him behind me, voice rough. "Walter." I stopped, didn't turn around. I worked 40 years, saved every penny, thought I deserved better. Thought your house would be our reward for all that sacrifice. It wasn't yours to take. I know that now. Knew it then, too, probably. But wanting something makes you stupid, makes you cruel. I turned then, saw an old man who looked like he'd been broken and badly repaired. "We lost everything," he continued. "Our savings, our son's respect, our dignity. Dorothy cries at night. Not loud, just these little sounds like something dying slowly. You made your choices. We did, and we'll die with them. But Walter, your daughter, she's not us. She was wrong, but she was wrong out of pain, not greed. There's a difference. Is there?" He nodded slowly. "I wanted your house. She wanted her father. When you shut her out after Martha died, she broke in ways that made her do terrible things. Doesn't excuse it, but maybe it explains it." I left him on that bench, feeding ducks with shaking hands. Walked home to my apartment, sat with Grace's letter, wondered if understanding and forgiveness were the same thing. Decided they weren't. But maybe understanding was enough. Maybe it had to be.
5 years later, I stood in Martha's garden one last time. Not as the owner, but as a guest of the family who'd honored what we'd built better than our own daughter ever could. The call came on a Thursday morning in April, 5 years after I'd sold the house. Sarah Henderson's voice was warm, careful. "Mr. Morrison? I hope you don't mind me calling. We got your number from the closing documents. We wanted to... Would you like to see the garden? We're having a spring gathering, and it felt wrong not to invite you." I stood in my apartment, looking at the photo of Martha I kept on the mantel, the only one I'd saved from the house. "When?" "Saturday around 2? Nothing formal, just neighbors, friends, some food. The roses are spectacular this year." Saturday came gray and humid, Richmond's typical spring mood. I drove the familiar streets, parked 3 houses down from what used to be mine, walked slowly, noting changes: new mailbox, children's toys on the porch, wind chimes Martha would have loved. Sarah met me at the door, her own children hiding behind her legs. "Mr. Morrison, thank you for coming." The house smelled different, younger, brighter, like crayon and fresh bread instead of memory and loss. But Martha's garden, they'd kept it exactly as she designed it. Every rose bush, every stepping stone, even the bird bath we'd bought on our 20th anniversary. "We found her garden journal in the shed," Michael Henderson explained, joining us on the patio. Detailed notes about each plant, when to prune, how to fertilize. We followed it religiously. If this story has kept you here for an hour, if you felt anger, sadness, maybe even hope, then subscribe, share it. Because sometimes the most powerful revenges aren't about destruction, but about protecting what matters from those who would destroy it. I walked the paths Martha had laid out, touched roses she'd planted, sat on the bench where she used to drink morning coffee. The Hendersons gave me space, let me disappear into memory. "Mr. Morrison?" I turned. A young woman stood there, maybe 30, holding a baby. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "I'm Anna. Grace was my roommate in college. She asked me to give you this if I ever saw you." Another letter. I almost refused it, but Anna's eyes were kind. confused by whatever stories she'd been told. She said you moved away after your wife died. Said she lost touch with you. Something like that. I tucked the letter in my pocket, unopened. Spent another hour in the garden, talking with the Hendersons about their plans, their children, their dreams for the space. They were good people. The house had chosen well. As I left, Sarah touched my arm. "Mr. Morrison, we'd love to have you visit the garden any time. It's not yours anymore, but it's still Martha's. That should mean something." I drove home, letter burning in my pocket, didn't open it until sunset, sitting in my chair with a glass of wine.
Dad, if you're reading this, it means Anna found you. Means you're still in Richmond. Means maybe there's still something of us left, even if it's just the space between words on a page. I'm married again. His name is James. He's kind, patient, nothing like Marcus. We have a daughter. I named her Martha. I tell her about her grandmother, about the garden, about the grandfather she'll never meet because her mother destroyed that bridge with her own hands. I tell her the truth, age-appropriately, that sometimes people hurt the ones they love most, that greed makes us stupid, that some mistakes can't be undone. Marcus is gone, moved to Texas with some woman he met online. His parents died within 6 months of each other last year. Dorothy first. Eugene couldn't live without her. They died in that Chesterfield apartment. Better to the end. I still live in Charlotte, still work at the dental office. I drive by houses for sale sometimes and remember measuring your rooms, planning renovations, discussing furniture placement while you cooked us dinner. The shame is physical, Dad. It hurts in my chest like a heart attack that never quite happens. I won't ask for forgiveness again, won't beg for reconciliation. I just wanted you to know that your granddaughter exists, that she has your eyes and Mom's smile, that I'm raising her to be better than I was, that every night when I tuck her in, I tell her that family isn't about what you can take from each other, but what you choose to give. That I learned that lesson too late from the father I threw away. Grace. P.S. There's a photo enclosed. You don't have to keep it, but she should exist for you, even if only for a moment. The photo showed a little girl, maybe 3, playing in a garden. She did have my eyes, Martha's smile, Grace's nose, a stranger who carried pieces of all of us. I kept the photo. Not on display, but in my desk drawer, next to Martha's picture from our wedding. Sometimes I looked at it, this granddaughter I'd never know, and felt the weight of what revenge really costs. But then I remembered Thanksgiving, remembered Marcus planning my disposal, remembered Grace measuring my rooms like I was already gone. The revenge hadn't been cruelty, it had been self-defense. I'd protected myself from people who saw me as an obstacle to remove. Still, on quiet nights, I wondered what Martha would think, whether she'd approve of what I'd done or mourn what we'd all lost. The answer came in dreams sometimes, her voice soft as garden rain. You protected our home, Walter, but homes aren't just houses, they're the people we choose to let inside. I never responded to Grace's letter, never met my granddaughter, but sometimes I drove past parks where children played and wondered if one of them was her, if she was kind, if she was careful with other people's hearts, if she'd learned the lesson her mother learned too late, that some things, once broken, can never be repaired. The garden blooms without me now, the house stands without me, my daughter lives without me, and I live without them, in an apartment overlooking Monument Avenue, with enough money to last, enough books to read, enough memories to carry. It wasn't the ending Martha and I planned when we bought that house 43 years ago, young and eager and certain our family would always choose love over greed. But it was the ending I chose when they showed me who they really were. And for that, I have no regrets. Only roses that bloom in someone else's garden.
tended with the care my own family never showed me. If you made it this far, if this story touched something deep inside you, then you understand that family isn't about blood, it's about loyalty. It's about choosing each other even when it's hard. Subscribe now. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the biggest betrayals come from those closest to us, but the strongest people are those who refuse to be victims of someone else's greed. Leave a comment below. Was Walter's revenge justified? Or should family always forgive? Your answer might reveal more about your own story than you realize.